So marketing cars. The car industry, the car industry, interestingly, has learned everything they know about their products and making their products from the bicycle industry, which predated them. There would be no Henry Ford without a man called Alexander Pope in America, the whole production line process. Everything they know about marketing their products, they learned directly from the massive success of bicycle sales and bicycle marketing. And they spent a century perfecting the art of selling their products. They very rarely, if ever, make mistakes. They also have a lot of money, unfortunately, to make sure they never make mistakes. But they will never mention a negative word about their products at all. Think about every car ad you've seen on anywhere. It's all glamorous, ennobling, effortless, blah, blah, blah. You'll never hear the car industry tell you that the act of driving a car is considered to be the most difficult task Homo sapiens have ever had to master. This is true. Hunting saber-toothed tigers is nothing compared to the task of driving a car through the CBD. You'll never hear them tell you that there's many, many studies that show that the level of microparticles are actually just as high inside cars, often higher than if you're riding a bicycle next to them. That doesn't seem to get any headlines. You'll never hear them tell you that your risk of head injury in a car is actually just as high, in many places higher inside a car as a car occupant than if you're riding a bicycle or as a pedestrian. They never seem to mention these things. Of course not. You'll never hear the car industry, for example, and I bet nobody here owns one, you never hear them mentioning motoring helmets. And it's funny, right? But here's the funny thing. They've been invented. And I go all around the world telling people about this, and it's so fun to be in Australia because this is where they were invented. I'm so happy to be here. First company, Davies Craig, you probably know them more than I do, in the late 1980s. Enough is enough. Car occupants. We need to do something about head injuries in cars. And they look at this. This is so corny now. If in a marketing perspective, this is great packaging. This is owned by my friends at the British Cycling Organization, the CTC. They bought it on eBay, and they have it in their office. And they at their office parties, they'll put it on and have a laugh. But I mean, the instructions manual, it says, wear it at all times, of course, but here's some really important times to wear it. And this is an Australian product, so it says when you're driving home from the pub. It actually says in the instruction manual. So, there's some logic there, right? But look, just look at the text here, You've made a sound decision. You will be a leader amongst men, a visionary for your community, and don't feel self-conscious while wearing it. It is really great. So it gets funnier because here's the second generation of motoring helmets. There was an Australian study in the late 1990s about car occupants and head injuries and ways to reduce this. With seatbelts and airbags, there's still a considerable risk of head injury. So this is a government thing here, and they put the University of Adelaide and Monash University, the Road Accident Research Unit, to task. Here, figure this out, man. We got to solve this problem. And you can see all the scientific shit there. $380 million benefit to this country alone per year. There's 1.2 million people killed in car accidents all around the world, tens of millions injured. This is in a way quite logical. But you never hear the car industry. If you buy a BMW, you don't get a free motoring headband, do you? You don't see them at the shops. Very strange, because the car industry would have to back this idea if it's going to fly. And of course, this is bad marketing. Imagine if we started telling people, the truth about how dangerous it is to drive cars. People would stop driving and stop buying cars. It would be a catastrophe for sales. So it doesn't fly, right? But it should. And while we're on the logic and rationality chapter here, this is a great idea whose time has come. I'm just sort of thinking outside the box with this. Cigarette packs, of course, have health warnings. 30 to 50%, depending on the country, 30 to 50% of the surface area of the cigarette packets have to have a health warning on them. Why don't we do this for cars? This would make sense. I've actually looked at all of the different ads that exist around the world for cigarette packets, and they all apply. Basically, every single one can just be copy-pasted onto the side of the car because of the health risks involved. And Felix is selling some bike stickers, some stickers up there. And I have a few small ones printed out here. But this is Felix funding his ice cream budget here. So he's selling them afterwards. So talk to him about it. But this is public service logic. You're either logical all the way or you're not, or you're, don't. So goal number 3 is what I call stop ignoring the bull, please. We have let a sacred bull into society's china shop. That's 2 metaphors for the price of 1. We can all agree that the automobile, the bull, is in the china shop. We can all agree that it's not going anywhere. This is not about a car-free world from my point of view at all. Cars aren't going anywhere. There's just too many of them in our cities. We have developed this fascinatingly, alarmingly bizarre ability to completely and utterly ignore the bull. Think about it. If there was physically, a fantasy game, if there was a bull running around right here in front of us, what would we do? We'd call somebody, and they would medicate it. They would shoot it with a dart, right? And then we would tie it down, we'd castrate it, we'd eliminate, the destructive capacity of the bull. This would be the first thing we would do if a bull ran in here. And instead, here in many societies around the world, we have our back to the bull, and we're scolding the pedestrians and the cyclists and saying, what are you doing in here? You can't come in this shop. There's a bull in here. You must be mad. And we're trying to bubble wrap them all instead of taming the bull. I just think we should just all turn around and say, shit, that's a big bull. How do we tackle that problem? Fortunately, this is not just theory. There are many ways of doing it, a whole catalog of ideas all around the world. What we're seeing, one of the most popular at the moment, is 30-kilometer-an-hour zones in city centers. There's about 60 or 70 cities now in Europe who have implemented them. Barcelona is one of them, and it has had the most amazing effect on the whole pace of the city. Traffic calming measures. In Denmark, of course, we have our legendary massive taxes on cars, 180% tax if you buy a new car, high petrol prices and whatnot. There's a whole catalog of ideas if we're serious about recreating our livable cities and stopping the destruction. If there was no cars on the streets, there wouldn't be any traffic fatalities. We'd just be tripping, and bumping our heads into light poles and things on the way home at night. But the problem is clear, and it's time to stop ignoring it. So, little departure. I've been doing a lot of thinking about anthropology and sociology relating to the bicycle. I had a talk in Copenhagen at the VeloCity Bicycle Conference where I got to play with in my talk about anthropology and what the bicycle gives to society, the social fabric, how it's strengthened with the presence of many people on bicycles in a city. But first I'm going to jump into this thing called personal emotional mobility. This is a new catchphrase I heard, and I heard it this week, and I heard it in this room. And it sounds nice, and when you read it, it looks nice. Personal emotional mobility. It's a very new century phrase. And the great thing is that this is a representative of the car industry who developed this phrase. And a very charming man, but who's a car designer. And he thinks that cars when they design cars, we should consider the personal emotional mobility of the car. People should be able to feel the steering wheel and have a little good feeling moment, and the view down the hood and the seats and the sound of the doors, is orchestrated perfectly for the human ear, and it should be this whole emotional experience. It makes you want to touch your nipples. But so you can have a nice emotional mobility moment while you're completely enclosed in a metal and glass box, completely and utterly separated and isolated from the society in which you live. So they've nicked a few things from us, the car industry, from the bicycle industry. I think we're just going to grab this one back because I've been thinking about this all week, after I stopped laughing. What is, for me, I thought, this is me talking, what is the personal emotional mobility for me? Isn't that what I get on my bicycle? And again, I don't name my bicycles, but I like my bicycles, of course. But isn't this what the bicycle gives me? Riding through my city or any other city, interacting with the urban landscape, elbow to elbow with my fellow citizens. Is this not a brilliant way to describe what the bicycle can bring back to our societies? An emotional relationship with my fellow citizens and the city in which I live. And that's why we live in cities, is to experience the cities. So we're taking that little phrase back. But the anthropology is also very important. I will I can't put words on it really just yet, but when in Copenhagen, if you've seen the photos, you're waiting, at the red light in the morning rush hour, rain, sun, snow, what doesn't matter. You have 100 people around you at that red light. You don't look at them. We don't, hi, lovely day for a bike ride. No, we're just going to work, or to a date or wherever we're going. But just the fact that we're elbow to elbow with our fellow citizens, smelling their shampoo or the perfume, somebody farting. I mean, it's a human thing, right? Or people talking on their phones, or two people talking up, pedestrians walking past. It's human. We're not separated by like we are in cars.